Hi, this is Jim from Weird Nashville. And back in the early years of television, science fiction shows always used model photography for things like spaceships. They didn't have CGI like we had today. Star Trek was no exception. They had originally ordered an 11-foot model that could be lit up from the inside and would allow them to film it in very, very good detail. At the same time, they had ordered a 3-foot model that could be used to film scenes when it needed to look like it was much further away, something they couldn't practically do on set because the 11-foot model was so big. Finally, they encountered the need to film a starship that was heavily damaged. But using either of the two original models was unthinkable because the damage to those models would have been very, very expensive. The solution was to use an off-the-shelf model kit that could be easily damaged for filming. This video is about that model and how, after 35 years of it being presumed destroyed, it was discovered. Now, back in 1966, Stephen Poe was an advertising account manager for a model kit company named Aluminum Metal Toys. We would better know them, of course, as AMT. He brokered a deal between Desilu Studios and AMT to acquire the rights to produce model kits based off the Star Trek television show. Now, what you're seeing here are a couple photographs that have been done by a collector who has one of the original 1966 models, and you can tell from the photographs it was painted and detailed all the way back then. He's kept it in very good shape. These models were characterized by a couple of things, including the fact that they used water decals. You put this decal in a little tiny like saucer of water, and it would peel off the back, and you could stick it to the ship. The problem was it looked pretty gross, as you can pretty much tell on the one nacelle. Part of the NCC 1701 is missing, but fortunately, on the right nacelle, it's still there. Now, the next thing you're seeing here is the publicity photo that was taken of one of the model kits and was used to put on the boxes of later releases. So if you had a professional model builder, you could turn that 18-inch kit into something that looked this good, even though really the best most people could hope for was what we saw a few moments ago with the other model. Now, in all of hobby modeling, the one kit that has been produced the longest, and the one kit with which almost every hobbyist has at least a passing interest in, is the classic 18-inch USS Enterprise model kit from AMT, probably the most popular model ever done. When AMT originally tooled up their 18-inch Enterprise, they apparently had access to the 3-foot studio model of the ship, which was originally built for pilot episodes and then later on modified for the series. Indeed, if you look at the model, there are some features that match the 3-foot model much closer than they did on the 11-foot model. After the Enterprise was issued, AMT's connection with Star Trek remained really good as they supposedly built the studio model for the classic Klingon cruiser in exchange for using it as a master and being allowed to do yet another kit based off that model. Now, what makes this video possible and what makes this story interesting is that most people didn't realize up front that there were two AMT models used in the television series. Both of them were used in season 2. Which does make sense since AMT entered the picture while season 1 was still filming. The first model was used in the episode The Doomsday Machine and appeared to be a stock version of the model without any lighting modifications. Obviously, as you can see, this model was severely damaged in several spots so that it could actually appear to be a heavily damaged starship. Thus, it could not be used for normal filming after this and was literally thrown out in the trash. However, several episodes later, they had the need to show the Enterprise orbiting a space station through the window of one of the offices. So they took another one of these models, they modified its nacelle so that one of the nacelles, the nacelle facing us, could actually pulse with light. Now, ironically, when they filmed the model, the nacelle actually made so much sound because remember, these were physical models. They didn't have things like LEDs and stuff like that. So they actually had to go back and literally erase all of the sound from the footage before they could overlay it with the footage from the TV series. Now, the real confusion happened when yet a third time they needed a model in the second season. And this was going to be for the episode The Ultimate Computer, where they wanted to show a Constitution class starship being disabled. And you can see the little clips up here on the screen. So a lot of people assume that since the last appearance of this model in Star Trek was of a damaged starship, the model had been damaged and thrown out. But that wasn't the case. This clip was actually reused from the Doomsday Machine. The model that was built for the Trouble with Tribbles was not reused. And that model went home with Matt Jeffries when the TV series was canceled. Now, one last thing. After it was used in the Ultimate Computer and the Trouble with Tribbles and stuff like that, after it was used in Star Trek, the model was used one more time. And it was photographed for the 1968 Viewmaster disc, which actually appeared in a Viewmaster slide with the 3-foot model, ironically, and this little model further back out. The AMT model in this case represented the USS Exeter. The clips were shown from the episode The Omega Glory. Matt Jeffries, for those of you who don't know, he was the designer of the Enterprise. From the original sketches to building one out of balsa wood to drawing the designs that became the 3-foot model, the 11-foot model, this man was pretty much the world's foremost authority on the Enterprise. And it's a good thing that it came from him, because in 2001, an auction went up from Profiles in History, and they claimed to have a ship that no one knew existed. They claimed they had an 18-inch AMT model ship that was film used in the original Star Trek series and had been modified to include lighting. Fortunately, it was actually being offered by Matt Jeffries and his brother. So there's no question of provenance here. This isn't a fraud. This isn't a fake. This was the real thing. And it was the real thing that no one knew they had. The auction finally closed for somewhere around $40,000. The person who won the auction was kept private, but it didn't take long for it to show up at Paul Allen's Science Fiction Museum in Seattle, as you can see in the photograph here. The museum today is actually called the Pop Culture Museum, and the ship is still there. And I guess that's it. We've taken a look at the AMT model. There's not as much about it as you would see from some of the others that we've talked about and that we will continue to talk about, but it plays a very, very important role in our history because had this model not existed, the Galileo shuttlecraft would not have existed. We'll talk about that in an upcoming video. And the Klingon D7 battlecruiser may not have existed. So this AMT model is very, very important. If you ever find your way out into Seattle, I was there a couple years ago, did not know it was there. What a shame. You really need to stop by and see this thing. This is the second in a series of videos about the Star Trek shooting models. So to make sure you don't miss any more, please, if you haven't already, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and enable notifications so you'll know when the next one comes out.